This misconception puts kids in harm every day. This idea that children aren't affected by witnessing domestic violence, by living in a home where there's coercive control and narcissistic abuse, and that a perpetrator of abuse, of domestic violence, can be a safe and loving parent to their children. So if you have wondered, gosh, why is my loved one so scared to send their children to their other parent's house? Because, right, the abuse was directed at the spouse or the partner. It was never directed at the children. So now that this relationship is over, everything should be safe, right? That one misconception harms kids every day. And so if you are new to this series, welcome. This is the sixth video in a series on what you need to know and understand to support someone who has experienced relationship abuse. So thank you for being here. I'm Sybil Cummin. I am the founder of Rising Beyond Power and Control, the Rising Beyond podcast, and the Rising Beyond community. And I want you to feel confident in supporting your people, your loved ones. So let's talk about our kids. And our kids who have witnessed domestic violence have the same levels of post-traumatic stress as veterans returning home from war. They hide it better. It doesn't look the same, but that is what research tells us, is that they've experienced this. And so now that the relationship is over, there's this idea that now they're going to be safe. And it's just not true. And so a perpetrator of relationship abuse, once the relationship is over, they still are going to try and find ways to control their ex-partner. They will use children if they're shared with them. And so they will try and harm the relationship by saying things like, oh, your mom doesn't want us to be a family anymore. She broke up the family. Or, your other parent doesn't want you to have fun. They're making it so you can't go to Disneyland with me this summer. And guess what? Maybe there's a court order where they can't take the child out of state, or there has to be supervised visitation because of abuse. But that constant kind of mind games, coercive control, psychological abuse is going to happen, right? There's other ways they will do it. They will do it through child abuse and neglect. They will do it through counter-parenting. They will use the children in so many ways. But one of the things I wanted to address today, because I talked about that a little bit in some other of these videos, is this idea that the children haven't been abused. A perpetrator of narcissistic abuse or of domestic violence have learned to work in their world in this way, that manipulation works, right? That they will harm others to get their needs met. They really struggle with empathy. Some do have some levels of empathy, some have zero empathy at all. And so is this someone you want raising children, as someone with no empathy? And so the children no longer have a buffer of their protective parent to keep them safe. And even if there's no physical abuse, the psychological abuse, gaslighting, coercive control will be there towards your children. And it's probably been there the whole time. So someone who perpetrates this type of violence, this type of coercive control, they will not love someone freely. There will always be strings attached, including for the children. So the children will be loved, I say that, like loved, if they are stroking that parent's ego, if they're behaving really well, if they are performing well in sports, right? But the minute they stop being complacent, they are likely going to be abused. And so this abuse may not look like what the abuse you're thinking of, but this is abuse, and it will affect these children over time. So I want to share an example with you of how these children are slowly conditioned to show that they love this other parent. So an example is someone that I have worked with a long time ago. The children, when the dad would pick up the children would typically push away, as young as babies, even little ones. And this dad would forcefully put the child's head on their shoulder. And that's uncomfortable, and hold them pretty tight. Boom, every time, pick up, push away, head to shoulder. Pick up, they push away, head on shoulder. So guess what happens? These kids are smart. Every time this parent would pick up their child, they would automatically put their head on the shoulder. And this is what a supervised visitation person said showed they have a loving, close relationship. Right? So this idea that, oh, wow, this is showing true love and compassion and empathy and connection is forced and was conditioned this way out of fear. So that is just one example of this. And so I just want you to, when you're like, gosh, like, is it really a big deal? It is a big deal. And so what you can do to help not only the survivor parent, but these children, is to show unconditional love with compassionate boundaries. So this is not allowing them to do whatever the heck they want because you feel guilty. This is giving them unconditional love, a safe place to fall. The more safe people that are in these children's lives, the better. So be a safe person for them, right? So your love cannot have strings attached, because then they will learn that that is what love is. And our goal is to give these kids the gift of perspective, that this love with these safe people feels this way, and this love from these people doesn't feel very good. And they're going to then gravitate more in their lives, in relationships, to the love that feels good. So I hope this was helpful. It's gross to think about and important to think about. So we've got just a couple of videos in this series left. I hope you've enjoyed them. Always reach out to me if you have more questions or any comments, and I'll catch you on the next video.